Alright guys, HyDra here and say, hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The World Championship is just around the corner. The favourites going in are probably Atlanta FaZe or the New York Subliners who won the most recent event. But OpTic Texas in front of the home crowd, can they get the job done? Kenny believes that despite their recent Sunburn performance, it is still possible and they're still confident they can turn this season around. If there was a time to do it, now would be the time. Can they get the job done? Loads of other storylines on the day as well. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Potential drama in the Ultra camp as well, because obviously Scrappy, he was tweeted about, you know, the Spanish players. This guy, we know, learned how to speak Spanish. Okay, learned how to say a few words in Spanish so we could talk trash to the Miami boys over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, it was the Euros finals last night, right? As it was in the Copa America. I think this is interesting just because, like, the World Cup's coming up in the States and everything, and Methods is watching this thinking, are we serious right now? These guys are crawling through the ventilation system to get into the final yesterday. I think it was the Hard Rock Stadium in Florida, wasn't it? So, yeah, maybe a little bit concerning over there. And there was just general talk about the Euros finals, right? It's always funny with England because, you know, at the start of the tournament, no faith from my side that we're going to win, but then all of a sudden you end up in the finals and, you know, believe that maybe it's possible, but it always goes the same way. And as Insight says, you know, so much pain, obviously last night, so it is what it is. And yeah, Scrappy and Insight, the AR duo, were potentially on very different sides of the discussion here. This was quickly from Jake Hell though, because yesterday was a pretty good day for Spain in the sporting context. Alcaraz wins Wimbledon, the singles finals, of course, in London against Djokovic, so Spanish winner, and then the Spanish guys do their bit and, you know, they win the Euros as well. Okay, they play better, it is what it is. So then people are wondering, all right, here we go, Spain looking good this summer, who knows what's going to happen at the Olympics, etc, etc, and Miami Heretics are going to be there at the Call of Duty World Championship. They're going to be there probably at the Esports World Cup as well. So is there anything in that? I mean, the issue is for Miami is that as the 8th seed going in, they arguably have like the hardest run of basically anyone in the sense that they play FaZe in the very first rounds, and then after that it arguably only gets harder because if they beat FaZe somehow they'll probably play the Subliners, and then, you know, we'll discuss those series later on today because there's certainly some things of interest over there. Quickly on the Minnesota Rokkr, I was kind of going through some of these teams and wondering what exactly do you do. Boston, we have a decent idea what they might be doing, although it's probably not very good as we've discussed over the last couple of days. Minnesota Rokkr though, they seem to have a better idea what they should be up to. The rumour is that they're going to keep Gunless around, they're probably going to keep Lins around, and they're going to find two others. Stanley's going to go, Accuracy's going to go. We think that Accuracy's potentially still working with OpTic Texas, although, you know, we haven't really heard any more of that over the last few days, so who knows if that's actually true or not. But if obviously that goes well, like let's say Lamar comes in for OpTic and he really turns around their performance over the last couple of weeks, gets, you know, Kenny and Pred back on the same page, whatever the intention is, if it's true of Accuracy coming in as like a coaching consultant effectively, if that works, does Accuracy get offered a full-time gig with OpTic or somebody else next season? Does that make more sense than playing again? These are some questions. So I think for the Rokkr side, Accuracy is very unlikely, I think, to play there again. They've just got to make a decision on what they do because, you know, they could bring back Vivid, they could bring back Big Awakens. I think it was interesting that Awakening, it didn't work out right because on paper, the Awakening move alongside Accuracy last season just made so much sense because, you know, veteran AR with a very talented player, you want to get the best out of him. It's, in hindsight, kind of surprising that Awakening just wasn't that good at this game, I guess, to me, and maybe next year will be a different story, right? Back on a tryout game, could be a different turn of events, but I don't think Minnesota Rokkr will go that way, and they've got a few decisions to make because, as have the other teams going into the World Cup, and they're going to be there, Minnesota Rokkr, because they're kind of partnered with G2, right? G2 are going to be there, so I'm sure the Rokkr boys are going to be at ReeaL for the World Cup in the middle of August, so what does that mean for their potential team? They're probably going to keep two. Obviously, we heard the rumours about Beans as well, because I'm sure Beans is going to get a spot or at least an offer somewhere. The issue is that he's got that kind of historic beef with Gunless, but we know that beefs can be settled for stuff like this. We've seen it in the past with, you know, Drazah and the FaZe guys joining forces with them after all the things that happened between them over the last several years. This is good news as well. So COD Challengers, of course, coming to Dallas for the World Championship, the Challengers Championship, and it's actually pretty cool that Clutch are effectively going to make sure that every single match is going to be streams, which obviously should be like the standard procedure, really, right? Like ideally for the World Championship on the tier 2 side, you want to be able to see every game, but that's not always how it goes, and you tend to find that, you know, often they'll just have the winners games or some select matches or the finals or whatever, and the other games might be, well, back in the day people used Periscope, right? Stand behind it with a phone on Periscope and live stream it that way. That was quite the wild time. But no, so Clutch EG are stepping in to provide the broadcast. The as kind of answers in the replies here, So the regular World Championship starts Thursday as usual, and then it's Friday that the Challengers World Championship gets underway, runs through on a very tightly packed schedule really until the Sunday, early Sunday, when I'm guessing that's when the Champs Grand Finals are going to be for the Challengers side, and then of course the main Grand Final, just that one game on the Sunday, of course, between whoever the two teams are in the Grand Finals on the main Call of Duty side. Quickly on Formal, because I know there was some discussion yesterday, right? You talked about returning to COD, playing Black Ops 6 professionally, we talked about the clip, and there was just some debate on how serious Formal was being. The reality is, of course, we discussed what the implications would be if Formal decided to return, and he implied that he would, but then again he's implied that before, and it's not necessarily the case. Then again though, if you are Formal, if you're in his circumstances, and he's probably going to leave Halo, like he's made that relatively clear that he's not going to play Halo again, does this not make a bit of sense to at least consider, right? Even if he was trolling and joking around in the clip where he said he was going to play Black Ops 6 professionally, is that not the most likely, intention of him if he does call it a day in Halo? Because it's not like he's going to go and play, Valorant, or maybe he goes and tries to become an Apex pro or something, right? But, doubtful. If he is going to want to keep competing in something, and he's done with Halo for now, and maybe he will be done with Halo forever, then a return to COD makes sense, especially given the fact that, he would have opportunities out there. But as I say, he'd have to be really committed to it, because otherwise people wouldn't sign him, and also, the reality is he probably had to leave OpTic, right, in order to make that happen elsewhere, unless he gets like a short-term loan arrangement. We talked about it, right, with what he'd done in the past with the OpTic Halo team. Maybe he could replicate that story, but I guess the other option is just to kind of stream full-time performer, which could work, obviously, and maybe is the other approach. But if Black Ops 6 comes out and he likes it, then obviously people are going to say, Formal's washed up, he's not the player that he was, and maybe that's true on some level. Like, he wasn't great the last time he was in the league, and would the teams have massive confidence that he's going to be, if he's fully committed, that's fine, but is there going to be confidence in many of these franchises that he would be fully committed? Because when you've got a player that's retired and come back, they're going to retire again at some point soon. So that's when, you've always got to weigh up the pros and the cons. But, the pros of somebody like Formal, if it works, are obviously very high indeed. So that's got to be one of the chief considerations there. But the other day we saw that Scump and Kenny, they had a sit down there to chat about how things are going. This was recorded, a while ago now, before Major 4, when they were going through their struggles. Major 4 happens, doesn't turn out too well. Now they're trying to go into the World Championship and turn things around again. But Kenny still says, given the state of the team, given the state of the kind of teamwork and the chemistry they've got and the history they have as players, even Kenny individually, he's gone through some hard times in terms of being on teams that have performed badly and then turning it around. I mean, famously over the last couple of years, you've got teams like the Los Angeles Thieves having 0-in-5 stints in online qualifiers, getting slapped around top 12 of the majors, and then they're going into the big tournaments and, potentially still turning it around, right? I mean, we saw them win the World Championship. They went back-to-back at the end of the Vanguard season. So there's lots of reason to believe that Kenny could be in a good position to do it again. Definitely a resilient player. And as a result of that, he seems to be of the mindset that, okay, things have been bad lately for OpTic, but that does not necessarily mean they can't turn it around.
Talk to me about how, like, the social pressure, I guess, is it any different from Thieves to OpTic, or is it just...
No, I would say here it's actually... Well, I would say it's definitely a little pressure. I usually don't let like outside stuff affect me, just because I'm so honest in the room with my teammates that I expect the same honesty from them. So like if they feel like I'm doing something terrible or playing terrible, I want them to be honest about it, and I'm gonna do it vice versa. So for me, we've been all honest, and I think at this team it's been way more clear cut of like us letting out what we think each other is like really bad at or what we're good at, stuff like that. So for me, like I've always been confident this year, no matter our like lows. We obviously had, this is probably the lowest low, but for me, it's like the conversation we have are still good. So I'm still super confident.
That's one of my favorite parts about teaming with like Shotzzy in specifics, is that like he's brutally honest, and I don't know if he does that like on purpose or if that's just how he is as a person. You know what I'm saying? Because what would it mean for you to bring the green wall a ring?
It probably mean everything, because like I said, I came here to win, and that's what we've done already. And I feel like the next step is the bigger win, which is obviously champs. I think it'll mean a lot just because of the fact that like I won a chance for 2 different teams. I think that's also a big thing.
You're going for 3?
Yeah. But yeah, I think the green wall has done nothing but support me since I've been here. I feel like it's kind of like changed the perspective around me as well as I've done content here. So I feel like they deserve...
You're always the villain.
Exactly.
Kylo Ken.
They deserve nothing more than like a champs ring for sure.
So I think this is one of the key things to consider, right, with the OpTic guys in general, really any team that's going through a difficult time, is that often you'll need to change something or other to kind of kickstart the rejuvenation, if you want to look at it that way. Kenny also knows this himself, because when that Los Angeles Thieves team, this is of course the legendary team Octane, Drazah, Kenny and Envoy that won the World Championship in Vanguard, they were struggling big time, that team, in the middle of the season, right? They had a big slump, they were like 0-5 in qualifiers, they couldn't win a game 5 to save their life, right? The amount of Tuscan searches they'd throw away, it was looking pretty bad for Thieves. There was talk about roster changes, there was talk about, does Kenny need to get dropped, does Envoy need to get dropped, like what should they do? Because Octane was playing really well, of course, he was a monster that entire season, not his last season, he played MW2 as well, but was really good both years, and then just called it a day and immediately retired after the end of MW2, where Thieves did not have the result they wanted at last year's World Championship, right? And Kenny historically has been really good at the World Championships in terms of pure KD until effectively last year, so we'll see if he can potentially turn that one around. But what happened to that Thieves team? They made a couple of changes, right? Kenny went to the SMG alongside Envoy, Drazah went to the second AR, and they brought in Shane as an additional coach, and that happened mid-season, and, I wouldn't say that those were the only two things that turned the team around, but I think what it probably was like is that the team felt in a bit of a slump, they weren't really sure how to improve, they changed a couple of things, and, things kind of restarted, they clicked into gear a little bit more, and they were able to take advantage of all the potential that was there beneath the surface, and I think Kenny may feel similarly about this current OpTic team, to say, okay, in a bit of a struggle, right, during Major 4, now at Major 4, and you've got to make sure the team's confident they can turn it around, because if the team doesn't believe they can turn it around and win the World Championship, it's not going to happen, right? So you've got to make that happen from a mental perspective. And in addition to that, you might need to make some sort of changes somewhere to make it happen, right? So this is my feeling on this whole accuracy thing, if it's true, which I believe there is at least some element of truth to it, that if accuracy joins the organization, at least briefly, it would change the structure to some degree, rejuvenate the team to a certain level, and maybe give them a good chance of making a run, right? Because the bracket is as follows. It's, they are on theoretically the easier side of the bracket, I guess. I mean, on paper, if you'd have told OpTic a few months ago, you get to play Gorillas round 1 at the World Championship, and then the next round you're playing either Ultra or Thieves, I think you would have taken that, right? Like, on paper, you don't have to play Subliners, who just won the most recent event. Okay, a few months ago, you'd have probably wanted to play Subliners instead of Ultra, but, right now, FaZe and New York are probably the two favourites for the event, the winners of the most recent events, and Atlanta FaZe, of course, who are always coming in as the favourites to basically every single tournament that they ever play, and they're on the other side of the bracket. So, there is reason for optimism here for OpTic, but they'll need to be well prepared, just because Gorillas will be well prepared. I think that's the one thing you can guarantee from their play and their culture, and the fact that they've got like a million guys working for free in the coaching department behind the scenes. Gorillas will have spent the last 2 weeks preparing hard for this one specific OpTic game, and OpTic will need to do the same the other way around, or they will need to adjust and understand and have some reactivity, because I think especially the search and destroys in that series are going to be very interesting, because I'm sure Gorillas will have a pretty sizable game plan in terms of what to do. So OpTic need to ensure they've also come up with their own new ideas for champs, otherwise it could be an interesting series, right? And I think that if it goes game 5, Gorillas are going to be in a pretty strong position, but if OpTic can get it done before then, I think they should be fine, of course, to advance. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. I know there was some discussion as well on XDefiant, how it's kind of trending lately, whether it's in a good spot or not such a good spot. Of course, ranked and everything's come along, but it's not exactly had the launch that they'd have wanted, especially given the fact that it's not like COD is in a great spot right now, and realistically, as soon as the new COD comes out, XDefiant's probably not going to be in the best position. So Octane was talking about it. There was some discussion with XDefiant for some time about the potential of a XDefiant Pro League, right? Effectively, some of the players, former COD players, could consider a move over to XDefiant, that if there was a Pro League or whatever happens there. There's been some speculation that there will be at some point, but it's not really happening yet. How that season would even, be defined compared to the regular Call of Duty stuff. Then again, though, if XDefiant is able to, let's say, get into becoming a pro game at the World Cup for, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, not going to happen this year, but, in the future, then all of a sudden you would have lots of organisations looking to get involved. So there is a few interesting pieces, but it doesn't exactly, seem like the Call of Duty killer that some people thought that maybe it might be. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.